silence your cell phones. Coach Baker will begin with an opening statement, then we'll go to questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Coach, whenever you're ready.
Just came off of a difficult camp. It really was. A little frustrating on my part with some of the situations that we've had going on, not in a negative. Had some injuries that we need to overcome. Have guys working in, and for the most part, the team is fresh, getting ready for the first contest versus Liberty University. And obviously, Coach Hugh Freeze does a fantastic job over there. I've already gone on record that I'm nervous about this one. We really don't know what these guys are going to do. We've been watching games from Ole Miss, games from Georgia Southern, games from Liberty to look at the personnel, and there's a lot of film to look at, and you try to tie it all together and try to figure out what they're going to do. So we're nervous about that, but our football team, for the most part, I think is healthy. I think our defense is in fantastic shape. I think we have a very good defense. Our kicking game, I think, will be very, very good. I think hopefully we'll continue on the things that we did in the special teams last year. And Coach Lustig does a fantastic job. Coach Ward does a fantastic job. Offensively, we're still putting some pieces together. I think we're still some questions about our offensive line. There's no doubt about that, and we've had numerous guys that are really good players in and out of the lineup during camp. We're getting them all back, but I'm not sure we're on the same page, but we're going to work very, very hard to make sure we're on the same page for our first contest. Questions?
Mark, in the back.
Coach, you've won all three of your season openers here, and you've even gone on record saying that the first game is kind of an important game. Can you talk more about the importance of setting the tone?
You know, I think that first game is important, but like I said, I'm really nervous about this one. And this reminds me so much of a game we had at a previous university, and we were 21-point dogs, and we went out and won the game because the team just didn't know what kind of team was coming into the stadium. And we had some hope. We were behind at halftime, came back and won by 21. We're playing a good football team that we don't know a lot about, and we're playing some fantastic coaches. So we just going to have to, I don't even like using that word. We're trying to anticipate what they're going to do, but we really won't know until we get out there, and there'll be a lot of game adjustments once the game starts.
Mario?
Coach, coming into the year, a lot of buzz about this team coming off a 10-3 season, and you talked about, I never set a ceiling on my football programs. How do you curtail, all the buzz and everything going around outside and keep it about this team inside and focus day in and day out?
I just flipped back the page. It's 365 days where everybody said we were going to take last, and we took second in the ACC Atlantic. And from a media standpoint, to me, it's exactly the same. We know what we got on the inside, but we need to make sure that we stay locked in and let the process happen. We have a very, very difficult non-conference. We're away for 2 games on the road. That's not what you want to do with a football team that has a chance to do the things that people think that we can do that the media's been talking about. You want to get some home contests underneath your belt, and you want to get your team off to a fantastic start at home. We're on the road. We're on the road versus 2 dangerous opponents, and we need to make sure that we do everything we can to get the first one.
I think the biggest surprise for us in the depth chart was seeing Carlos Federer starting and Ryan Alexander on the 2 line. Well, I understand it's still kind of a work in progress, like you mentioned, but what went into that decision?
It's not solidified. It's going to start. The game is going to start that way. Those guys are going to play a lot of football. Again, it comes down to learning a lot of offense, learning it and practicing it at the tempo that you need to practice in. The one thing about tempo is that we're only as fast as our slowest offensive lineman, and it's hard for those big guys to get used to the speed. I think back to last year with my son-in-law, when I told him, I said, you're going to have to get into shape. You're going to have to figure out how fast we play. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, well, we went up-tempo at Texas A&M. And I just smiled. And some of the other guys started giggling. I mean, for 300-pounders to giggle, that's unusual. And then I still remember the very first drive in practice where we had to call a timeout. He knows what I'm talking about because his whole body was beat red. So the point being is this. When you haven't been in this system, okay, you have to get used to it. And Carlos has been in the system. He's got a better taste of how fast we need to operate. That doesn't mean it's going to end up that way. which is the reason why you wish you had a couple of more games before you get into the heart of your schedule, okay? But that's the way the chips fell, and we're going to have to play the cards that were dealt to us.
Mark?
You've said before you haven't had a team for 3 years, now you haven't had a team for 4 years. I don't know if you ever had the expectations either that you have going into this year. What are your expectations?
You know, we're going to play it one game at a time. This team has nothing to do with last year's team, and last year's team has nothing to do with this year's team. And so much of the expectations is based off of people who are no longer in the room. And I think that they have to shape, form their own identity, and they have to decide, along with the coaches and myself, we all have to decide what kind of team we want this to be. And it's a work in progress. It really is. And come Saturday night, I'd imagine somewhere around 10 or 11 o'clock, we'll have an idea.
Brian?
Over the last 3 years, you got a guy leading your offense and Eric Dungy, who call one of the best leaders that you had on your football team. Is Tommy ready to step into that role?
I don't know if anyone's ready to step into that role, but I know this. He's going to be the guy that's going to have the ball. And the guys that have the ball has a lot to say what's going to happen, whether it's a positive or negative. When you look on the offensive side of the ball and you see guys like Aaron Service, Evan Adams, Mo Neal, Mo Neal is like a quarterback on the football field. That guy's been through so much. It's his senior year. He knows it inside and out. Hackett has played a lot of football for us. Chris Elmore, are you kidding me? The guy knows 4 positions, and that's not even counting the defensive side of the position, you know. So there's a lot of leaders on there, but people have a tendency to look at the quarterback because he touches the ball all the time. Tommy DeVito will do a fantastic job leading, but he does not have to lead the offense by himself.
Matt?
You know, how do you define a successful camp? Is it just getting out of there unscathed, healthy, or is it, seeing the guys come together and everything work out?
I think the first part of it is right. We came out, we lost one. I shouldn't say one. We've lost some players, but we've came out okay. And if you're going to train the team the right way, you're going to have some owies. You might lose a guy or two. That's part of it. And if you don't push them that hard, then what you have is a healthy team that's not ready. And I'd rather be a little banged up and ready than a healthy team that's not ready, and then you're trying to explain why these guys aren't doing the things that they need to do. And you're like, well, what are you talking about? Just look at the couple of the games that happened this Saturday. I mean, you can watch the game and go, wow. And you have your own comments. Those comments are to yourself. I'm not going to talk about other people's football teams. But there's a lot to go into getting ready for the very first game. And we're relatively healthy coming out of camp. There's some guys that have missed some practices, and the training room needed to keep them. They needed to be healthy for this game. But I'm a little uneasy about what they missed and going into games if something like that popped up. So we're trying to cover that in meetings and crossing our T's and dotting our I's to make sure these guys are 100% mentally ready to go. And physically, they're good. But if we can get the physical and the mental together, then maybe we can have a nice, clean game and not a messy game.
Steve? Stevie.
Sorry.
Coach, for your defense, you start off with Hugh Freeze, even going towards next week. You got Loxley with a record-breaking offense at Alabama. Just how big of a challenge will it be for that side of the ball?
I'm not going to talk about the second one, but I'll talk about Hugh Freeze is the real deal. We all know that. And this is a huge challenge. And we had our troubles with Western Michigan coming out of the gate last year. And this guy knows exactly what he wants to do, and he knows how to do it. So this is a big deal. It's a big challenge. Hugh Freeze versus our defense, and we don't have a clue what they're going to do.
All right.
The excitement there for you, you talked about, what the guys in camp and everything, but is it, 30 plus years of coaching college football, is it ramped up for you, or was it going to hit you come Saturday night at about 5:30?
I can't even say that. This is like, to me, it's like an exam, and I'm a professor. and I'm getting my students ready for the exam. And then you hand out, the game is the exam. And now the really cool thing is, unlike a professor, I can actually give them some answers during the test to make sure they have an opportunity to be successful. If they miss one question, I want them to get 99. They miss two, I want them to get a 98. Because if most of them get A's, we got a heck of an opportunity of passing the test, which is winning the game. So I'm going to be out there with them, but the excitement part of it, I don't know. I don't know. I'm more concerned about them being mentally right, because if they're mentally right, then we should be okay.
Andrew?
I know we talked about the linebackers in camp, and you said it's a pretty deep group this year, and guys will have a chance to play. What you see from Armstrong and Lakeem that let them win those starting jobs? Are we going to see Michael and Juan and maybe Lee throughout the year?
I think you'll see some of those guys that you mentioned. That the two main guys, they do it right more than anyone else. So that's going to give them the opportunity to go out there first and for the defense to be right. And we do need our defense to be right, especially in the early part of our schedule.
Stephen?
Got a two-part question for you.
Go slow, Stephen.
We'll go real slow. Dr. Chris Frederick, he's a computer engineering major.
I knew he was smart.
Yeah. What was your initial reaction to that when you got here and you're just taking stock of your team and you see this guy's bouncing that? That's the first part of the question. And then more broadly, how do you look at athletes who maybe want to, on your team that want to take on more time, work demanding majors?
First of all, Frederick, he balanced. He's a really even keel guy. I've had guys that have been engineering degree guys before in football. It's very taxing. You have to be very disciplined with your nightlife and what you're going to do with your spare time. And I've had guys that have graduated with those degrees at other universities. I won't name the other universities. But normally those guys are really locked in. They're normally very even keel. They operate like myself with a lack of sleep most of the time, but they find a way to get it done. And if you're around Frederick, he's like that. He's very, and the really cool thing is he plays like that on Saturdays or Fridays and Thursdays the exact same way. He doesn't really get too high or too low. Very intelligent young man, very sharp dude. I'm sure he's on everybody's dance cards on campus.
Maybe more generally speaking, and this is a different situation where you come into the team and he's already here, already taking these classes, but when you have a player, maybe a recruit or even a current player who wants to take an engineering major or something that is a little more demanding, how do you kind of approach those conversations?
We never tell them what they can major in, what they would like to major in. We've even had situations, if it depends on how good of the player they are. If they're really good, we'll actually move practices for them. Like sophomore, your freshman, your sophomore, your junior years, you can do some things with classes and maybe not interrupt the flow, but as a senior, you got to take the classes you need to take to graduate. We've even moved times of our practices or have allowed players to skip practice based off of how their major is. Now, once again, it depends on who the player is, okay, and how important they are to what we're doing and whether they can make it up. Some guys literally are so sharp that if you just give it to them on a board or give them to them in video, they can physically do it. And if they can do it, we'll help them out.
Time for two more questions. Mark and Matt.
Back to what Mario asked you about Tommy. You've coached obviously some very good quarterbacks in your tenure, in your coaching career. From where Tommy was going into the opener last year, when he played, struggled a little bit, to where he is now, what do you see in him?
I see someone that's eager to get everything started. He's waited and he's eager. And that energy is good. That nervous energy is good, but you got to be careful with that at that position. This young man, I think he has an opportunity to be good, but he's going to have to go through some things. Like the Notre Dame game, he went through something. Then you had the Florida State, the NC State. He's going to have to go through those game experiences that you develop. And as he develops those experiences, he won't be fooled again. Okay, you fool really good quarterbacks one time. And then the second time you try to fool them with the same thing, they burn you. And this is the type of individual he is. But he's going to have to go through some growing pains of seeing some stuff that he hasn't seen. And then once he locks it in, once he memorizes it, he'll be really, really good.
Last question, Matt.
You guys have taken advantage of the transfer portal situation, obviously with Tristan Jackson and Abdul Adams. Have they kind of lived up to what we thought they would be so far? I know we haven't seen a whole lot on the field so far, but what do you expect out of those guys coming?
The thing that I'm really excited about both of those guys are they've been fantastic practice players. Both of those guys have led our scout teams for an entire year. Obviously, the community and you guys got an opportunity to see them perform in the West Virginia game, but that was an entire year of just being the scout team tailback and the scout team wide receiver and getting banged around by the varsity, so to speak, and not saying boo because they understood their role. And I really did appreciate, especially from where they came from, their backgrounds of how they fit in with the family in the Ohana. Now they get an opportunity to do something else, and we're going to have to see it. They did not go through an entire season, okay? And it'll be fun to see their growth in this offense as well, especially with both of them having the opportunity to come back for another year.
Thanks very much for your time, Coach.
Thank you. See you guys.
If anyone has players-
Matt, how are you doing?